I was hauling a load of frozen goods down Interstate 80 when I first noticed the headlights in my mirror were not blinking. Not once. Not for 30 miles. That was the night I learned that some roads in Wyoming do not follow the same laws as the rest of the world. That was the night I learned that the darkness out here has rules, and if you break them, the darkness breaks you back. My name is Ethan, and I am 32 years old. I have been driving trucks across the American West for almost a decade now, and I can tell you this with absolute certainty. There are things on these highways that should not exist. I am not talking about monsters or creatures from horror films. I am talking about something older, something that has always been here, waiting in the empty spaces between towns, in the long stretches of road where civilization forgets to reach. If you have ever driven through Wyoming at night, you have felt it too. That pressure in your chest. That feeling of being watched from the darkness beyond your headlights. That instinct screaming at you to keep your eyes forward and your foot on the gas. Before I go any further, I need to ask you something. If you have made it this far, if this story has grabbed your attention, do me a favor and hit that like button. Subscribe if you have not already, because what I am about to share with you is not just a story. It is a warning. And if you have ever been on the road late at night, if you have ever felt that creeping dread in the pit of your stomach, then you need to hear this. Share this with anyone you know who drives at night. They need to know the rules. Also, drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever experienced something unexplainable on a lonely highway? I want to hear your stories, because I know I am not alone in this. Your experiences might help someone else survive their own encounter with whatever waits out there in the dark. I started driving trucks right out of high school. My father was a trucker, his father before him, and it felt natural to follow that path. There is something freeing about the open road, about being your own boss in a way, even when you are technically working for a shipping company. For years, it was exactly what I wanted. Days blurred into nights, cities into towns, and the rhythm of the highway became my heartbeat. I thought I knew these roads. I thought I understood them. I was wrong. The first few years of my trucking career were exactly what I expected. Long hours, decent pay, and the kind of solitude that either drives you crazy or becomes your best friend. I chose the latter. I learned to appreciate the quiet stretches, the endless horizon, the way the road could make you feel like you were the only person left in the world. Wyoming became one of my favorite states to drive through, despite what everyone said about it being boring or empty. To me, that emptiness was peaceful, sacred. Almost. I would leave Cheyenne in the early morning, watch the sun rise over the plains, and feel like I had the whole world to myself. The landscape out here is not like anywhere else in America. It is raw and untouched, with rolling hills that stretch for miles, sudden cliff faces that drop away into nothing, and a sky so big it makes you understand why people used to think the earth was flat. During the summer, you can see thunderstorms forming 50 miles away, watch them move across the land like living things. During the winter, the snow comes down so thick that the highway disappears, and you are driving on faith and memory alone. But it was the nights that I came to love most. There is something about driving through Wyoming at night that feels timeless. The stars out here are brighter than anywhere else I have ever been. You can see the Milky Way stretched across the sky like a river of light. The highway is usually empty, and you can go for an hour without seeing another vehicle. It is just you, your truck, and the endless black ribbon of asphalt rolling out ahead of your headlights that I used to find that peaceful. Now, I understand that peace was just ignorance. I was driving through something I did not understand, and my ignorance protected me. The moment I started to see, the moment I started to know, that peace shattered like glass. It started about 3 years ago, on a Thursday night in late September. I had taken a route I had driven 100 times before, a straight shot from Cheyenne to Rock Springs along Interstate 80. It is one of those drives that feels endless, especially at night. The landscape out here is brutal in its emptiness. Rolling plains that stretch forever, hills that look like sleeping giants, and a sky so vast it makes you feel like an insect. During the day, it is beautiful in a harsh way. At night, it is something else entirely. I was running behind schedule that evening. A delay at the loading dock had put me hours off my timeline, and I was pushing to make up the distance. The sun had set about an hour earlier, and the darkness had come fast, the way it does out here. No gradual twilight, just day and then night, like someone flipped a switch. My headlights carved a tunnel through the black, and beyond that tunnel, there was nothing. Just void. The temperature had dropped significantly after sunset. I could see my breath fogging slightly in the cab, even though I had the heater running. The radio was playing old country songs, the kind my father used to listen to when I was a kid riding in his truck. Garth Brooks, George Strait, Alan Jackson. Music that made you think of simpler times, of dirt roads and small towns and life before everything got so complicated. The CB radio crackled with the occasional chatter from other drivers, but the frequency was mostly quiet. That is normal for this stretch. Not many people drive through central Wyoming at night if they can help it. The ones who do are usually veterans like me, people who have been on the road long enough that the isolation does not bother them anymore. I had the cruise control set at 72 miles per hour. My coffee was still hot in the cup holder, and I was settling into that meditative state you get into on long hauls. Your mind goes quiet. Your body becomes part of the machine. You and the truck are one thing, moving through the darkness with a purpose that feels almost spiritual. That is when I saw the hitchhiker. He was standing on the shoulder, just at the edge of my headlights, thumb out in the universal sign. But something about him made me grip the steering wheel tighter. He was wearing red, a red jacket, bright as blood, impossible to miss against the darkness. It was not a faded red or a rust red or a burgundy. It was the kind of red that seems to glow, that seems to have light coming from inside it. And he was smiling. Not a friendly smile, not a grateful smile. A smile that said he knew something I did not. A smile that said he had been waiting for me. Asterisk, I had picked up hitchhikers before, back when I was younger and more trusting. You meet interesting people that way, hear interesting stories. There was a time when I thought of it as a civic duty, helping people who were down on their luck or just trying to get from one place to another. But over the years, I had become more cautious. Too many news stories about robberies and assaults. Too many warnings from other drivers about people who were not what they seemed. So I had stopped picking people up, even though part of me always felt a little guilty about it. But something about this man made every instinct in my body scream to keep driving. It was not just the red jacket. It was the way he was standing, perfectly still, not shifting his weight from foot to foot the way someone who had been standing for a while would do. Not looking up the road to see if other cars were coming. Just standing there, thumb out, smiling, staring straight ahead at some point in the distance that only he could see. I did what my instincts told me to do. I kept driving. I watched him in my side mirror as I passed, and I swear his smile got wider. The corners of his mouth stretched up toward his ears in a way that should not have been possible. He did not move, did not turn to watch me go, just stood there, staring straight ahead with that terrible smile that seemed to split his face in half. I told myself it was nothing. Just a guy looking for a ride. Maybe he was drunk. Maybe he was high. Maybe he was just weird. People are weird. That is not a crime. But my hands were shaking, and I could not shake the feeling that I had just dodged something. Something bad. Something that would have followed me into my cab and sat beside me in the darkness. Smiling that impossible smile. I turned the radio up and tried to focus on the road. The country music helped a little, grounding me in something normal and familiar. I finished my coffee and tossed the empty cup into the passenger seat with the others. I checked my mirrors, adjusted my seat, went through all the little rituals that long-haul drivers develop to pass the time. But I could not stop thinking about that man. That red jacket. That smile. 2 hours later, I saw him again. Same red jacket. Same smile. Same exact posture. Thumb out, standing on the shoulder like he had been waiting for me. Like he had always been waiting for me. But that was impossible. I had driven over 100 miles. There was no way he could have gotten ahead of me. No way he could be standing there, in the exact same position, wearing the exact same expression, with that exact same impossible smile. Asterisk, unless he had never been different people at all. Unless it was the same man, somehow appearing ahead of me, somehow knowing where I would be and when I would be there. I did not stop. I pushed the accelerator harder, and my truck roared past him. This time, I watched in my mirror, and I saw him turn his head to follow me. Slowly, mechanically, like a doll on a rotating stand. His neck twisted further than any human neck should twist, and his smile never wavered, never changed. He watched me go, and I knew with absolute certainty that he could see me, that he was looking right at me, that he knew my face now, knew my truck, knew my route. That was when I noticed the mile marker I had just passed. Mile marker 187. I had heard stories about mile marker 187. Every trucker who runs this route has. It is one of those legends that gets passed around at truck stops and rest areas, usually late at night over bad coffee and cigarettes. The stories vary in the details, but the core is always the same. Do not stop at mile marker 187 after dark. Do not even slow down. Something is wrong with that stretch of road. Something that does not make sense. Something that has been wrong for a long time, maybe since before the highway was even built. Some people say it is cursed. That a family died there in a car accident back in the 60s, and their ghosts still haunt the area, looking for help that will never come. Others say it has to do with the land itself, that the native tribes who lived here considered this area sacred and dangerous, a thin place where the boundary between our world and the spirit world was weak. Still others say it is something older than that, something that has nothing to do with ghosts or spirits or curses, something that has always been there, waiting in the darkness, watching the world change around it while it remains constant and patient and hungry. I had always dismissed those stories as urban legends, the kind of tales bored drivers tell to pass the time. Every highway has its haunted stretches, its dangerous curves, its mile markers where bad things supposedly happen. I figured mile marker 187 was just Wyoming's version of that. A story, a myth, nothing more. But sitting there in my cab, hands white-knuckled on the wheel, heart pounding in my chest, I understood. Those stories were not entertainment. They were warnings. They were rules passed down from driver to driver, a kind of oral tradition meant to keep us safe from things we did not understand and should not question. And I had just broken one of those rules without even knowing it. I had driven past mile marker 187 after dark, and something had noticed me. That night changed me. I made it to Rock Springs without any other incidents, but I could not sleep. I checked into a cheap motel near the truck stop, showered, lay down in bed, and stared at the ceiling for hours. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that man in red. Saw that smile. Saw the way his head had turned to follow me, turning and turning and turning until I could not see his face anymore, only the back of his head, but I knew he was still smiling. Still watching. I gave up on sleep around 6 in the morning. I got dressed, checked out of the motel, and drove to the truck stop for breakfast. The place was packed with drivers, all of them grabbing food and coffee before hitting the road. I sat at the counter and ordered eggs and bacon and toast, food I barely tasted. My mind was elsewhere, replaying the events of the previous night over and over. Trying to make sense of what I had seen. I spent the next few days asking around, talking to other drivers, trying to understand what I had experienced. Most of them looked at me like I was crazy. A few nodded knowingly, but did not want to talk about it. One guy told me I had been driving too long and needed to take a break. Another told me to get my eyes checked, that I was probably seeing things because of fatigue. But then I met Jimmy. Jimmy was an old-timer, one of those drivers who had been on the road for 40 years and had seen everything there was to see. He was sitting alone in a corner booth at a truck stop outside Rollins, nursing a cup of coffee that had probably gone cold an hour ago. He had that look about him, the look of someone who carried secrets and burdens that most people would not believe. His face was weathered and lined, his hands scarred and rough, and his eyes had a quality to them that I can only describe as haunted. Like he had seen things that had marked him permanently, changed him in ways he could never undo. When I asked him about mile marker 187, his face went pale. Actually pale. I watched the color drain from his cheeks, and his hands started to shake slightly. He set his coffee cup down carefully, like he was afraid he might drop it. "You saw something," he said. It was not a question. It was a statement of fact. He knew. He knew because he had been there too. He had seen what I had seen, or maybe something worse. I nodded and told him about the man in red. About the smile. About seeing him twice, 100 miles apart. About mile marker 187. Jimmy sighed, deep and heavy, like he was carrying a weight I could not see. Like every word I had just spoken had added another pound to a burden he had been carrying for decades. He looked around the truck stop, making sure no one was close enough to overhear us, then leaned forward across the table. "You are lucky," he said quietly. "Lucky you did not stop. Lucky you kept driving. Because if you had stopped, if you had pulled over and opened your door to that thing in the red jacket, I would not be talking to you right now. No one would. You would just be another missing person, another trucker who disappeared somewhere on Interstate 80. Another case that goes cold because there are no witnesses and no evidence and no bodies to find." A chill ran down my spine. "There are rules," Jimmy continued. "Rules you need to follow if you are going to keep driving this stretch at night. I did not make them up. No one did. They have just always been there, passed down from driver to driver, from the old-timers to the rookies, from generation to generation. You follow them, you will be fine. You break them. He trailed off and did not finish the sentence. He did not have to. I could see the answer in his eyes. I could see the fear that he had learned to live with but had never overcome. Asterisk, how many rules? I asked. 5, Jimmy said. 5 rules that will keep you alive. 5 rules that stand between you and whatever is waiting out there in the dark. I am going to tell you these rules, and I need you to listen carefully. I need you to remember them. I need you to follow them without question, without hesitation, without thinking you can outsmart them or find a loophole or figure out a better way. These rules exist for a reason, and that reason is written in blood and disappearances and the kind of terror that changes a person forever. I leaned forward, giving him my complete attention. Rule number 1, Jimmy said, his voice low and serious. Never stop at mile marker 187 between sunset and sunrise. Not for anything. Not if you see someone who needs help. Not if your truck breaks down. Not if you think you hit something. Not if you see a child standing on the road crying. Not if you see your own mother waving you down. You keep driving. You find another place to stop, even if you have to limp along on a flat tire. Even if your engine is smoking and your transmission is grinding and every warning light on your dashboard is lit up like a Christmas tree. You do not stop at mile marker 187. That stretch of road does not belong to us at night. It belongs to something else, and if you stop there, you are entering their territory. You are accepting an invitation you do not want to accept. I thought about the man in red, and I nodded. My throat felt tight. Rule number 2, Jimmy continued, and I noticed his hands were still shaking. If you see headlights following you for more than 20 miles, do not let them pass. I know it sounds backwards. I know it sounds wrong. Every instinct in your body will tell you to move over, to let the faster vehicle go by, to follow the normal rules of the road. But if something is following you that long, it is not another driver. Real drivers pass or fall back. They exit the highway or speed up or slow down. They do not maintain the exact same distance for 20 miles, 25 miles, 30 miles. Whatever is behind those headlights is not human, and if you let it get in front of you, you are giving it control. You are letting it lead you somewhere you do not want to go. Keep it behind you. Keep it where you can see it. Block it if you have to. Swerve if you have to. Do whatever it takes to keep those headlights in your rearview mirror and not in front of you. My mind flashed back to that first night, to those headlights that had never blinked, and a chill ran down my spine. I had not known about this rule then. I had not been paying attention, but nothing had followed me that night. Or at least, nothing I had noticed. The thought that something might have been there, might have been tracking me, might have been deciding whether or not to come closer, made my skin crawl. Rule number 3, Jimmy said, and now his voice dropped to almost a whisper. Never pick up hitchhikers wearing red after 10 at night. I do not care if it is a man, a woman, or a child. I do not care if they look hurt or scared or desperate. I do not care if they are bleeding or crying or begging. Anyone wearing red after 10 o'clock at night is not what they appear to be. They are bait. And if you stop for them, if you open your door and let them in, you are not going to like what gets reeled in. You are not going to like what climbs into your cab and sits beside you and smiles at you with a mouth that has too many teeth. Red is a signal. Red is a mark. Red is a way for them to identify themselves to each other. And if you see it, you drive right past. I swallowed hard. I had been so close to stopping that first night. So close. If the man had looked more desperate, if he had been waving his arms or limping or doing anything that suggested genuine distress, I might have pulled over. I might have opened my door. I might have let him in. And then what? What would have happened then? Would I be sitting here in this truck stop, talking to Jimmy? Or would I be another story that drivers tell late at night? Another cautionary tale about someone who broke the rules and paid the price? Rule number 4, Jimmy said, and I could see sweat forming on his forehead despite the cool temperature in the truck stop. If your CB radio starts speaking in reverse, turn it off immediately and do not respond. Do not try to understand what it is saying. Do not try to answer. Do not think you can help whoever is calling for you. Just shut it off and leave it off until sunrise. Whatever is broadcasting on that frequency is not human, and it is trying to get your attention. It wants you to respond. It wants you to acknowledge it. And if you do, if you speak back to it, you are opening a door that you will not be able to close. You are letting it know that you can hear it, that you can be reached, that you are available. And once it knows that, it will not leave you alone. I had never heard a CB radio speak in reverse. I hoped I never would. But Jimmy's description made my stomach turn. The idea of driving through the darkness, alone in my cab, and having the radio suddenly crackle to life with backwards speech. With my name spoken in a voice that was trying to be human but failing. With an invitation or a command or a threat spoken in syllables that my brain would have to work backwards to understand. I did not want to imagine it, but now I could not stop imagining it. And rule number 5, Jimmy said, looking me dead in the eye. His gaze was intense, burning, desperate. Like this rule was the most important one. Like this rule had cost him something personal. Do not look in your rearview mirror if you hear tapping on your trailer at night. I do not care how loud it gets. I do not care if it sounds like someone is trying to break in. I do not care if it sounds like a hammer or a wrench or someone pounding with their fists. Keep your eyes forward. Keep them on the road. Drive to the nearest rest stop or town or any place with lights and people. Do not pull over. Do not stop. And whatever you do, do not look. If you look, if you see what is making that sound, you will not be able to unsee it. It will be burned into your memory forever. And worse than that, it will know you saw it. It will know you acknowledged it. And it will follow you. Not just for one night. Not just for one trip. Forever. It will find you wherever you go. It will be waiting for you every time you get behind the wheel. It will tap on your trailer, on your door, on your window, and it will wait for you to look again. Because once you have seen it, you are connected to it. You are part of its world, and it is part of yours. We sat in silence for a long moment. The sounds of the truck stop filtered in around us. Normal sounds, human sounds, safe sounds. Engines idling, people talking and laughing, the hiss of air brakes, the clatter of dishes from the kitchen, the smell of coffee and bacon and diesel fuel. Everything normal, everything as it should be. But I knew now that normal was just a thin veneer over something much darker, much stranger, much more dangerous. What are they? I finally asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The things out there. What are they? Jimmy shook his head slowly. I do not know. Ghosts, maybe. Spirits. Something left over from the people who died on these roads over the years. Wyoming has a lot of history, and not all of it is pretty. Miners who went into the mountains and never came back. Native tribes who were driven from their lands and died of exposure and disease. Settlers who tried to cross the plains in winter and froze to death. Cowboys and outlaws and drifters who met violent ends in places no one would ever find them. A lot of people died out here, Ethan. Alone and afraid and angry. Maybe some of them did not leave. Maybe they are still here, still trying to get somewhere. Still trying to finish whatever journey they started. Still trying to find their way home. He paused and took a sip of his cold coffee, grimacing at the taste but drinking it anyway. Or maybe, he continued, it is the land itself. This place has always been empty, always been wild. The native peoples who lived here for thousands of years respected that emptiness. They understood that some places are not meant for humans. Some places belong to forces we cannot understand and should not challenge. Maybe the emptiness has a life of its own. Maybe it has a consciousness, a purpose, a hunger. Maybe it has been here since before humans walked this continent, and it will be here long after we are gone. Maybe we are just passing through its territory, and the rules are its way of letting us know that we are tolerated but not welcome. That we can drive through its domain as long as we show proper respect, as long as we follow the rules. Have you ever broken the rules? I asked, though I already suspected the answer. Jimmy looked down at his coffee cup. His hands were still shaking, and I noticed for the first time that there were scars on his knuckles, old scars that had healed badly. Once, he said quietly, rule number 5. About 15 years ago, I heard tapping on my trailer one night, and I looked. I saw. He trailed off, his face going gray. His jaw clenched. His eyes went distant, like he was back there, seeing it again, reliving a moment he had spent 15 years trying to forget. What did you see? I asked, not sure I wanted to know, but unable to stop myself from asking. Something that should not have a face, Jimmy said, his voice hollow. Something that was pressing against the inside of the trailer door, like it was trying to push through from the other side. But my trailer was empty. I had just dropped off a load in Laramie. There was nothing in there. Nothing alive, anyway. But I could see it in my mirror, pressing against the metal, leaving impressions in the door. A face, or something like a face. eyes where eyes should not be, a mouth that was open too wide, open in a scream or a laugh or both, and hands, so many hands, pressing against the door from the inside, trying to push through, trying to get out, or trying to get to me. What did you do? Asterisk, I drove, Jimmy said. I drove like hell itself was chasing me, and I did not stop until I hit Cheyenne. When I finally opened up that trailer in the daylight, with other people around, with the sun shining and everything normal, there were handprints on the inside of the door. Hundreds of them, all different sizes. Adult hands, children's hands, hands with too many fingers, hands with too few. And they were not made with flesh and blood. They were made with something else. Something that left a kind of oily residue that would not wash off. I ended up selling that trailer. Could not stand to use it anymore. Could not stand to look at those prints and remember what I had seen pressing against that door, trying to get through. Did it follow you? I asked. Did it keep coming back? Jimmy nodded slowly. For a while, I would hear tapping sometimes, on different trailers, on different trucks. But I never looked again. Never. I kept my eyes forward, drove to the nearest town, checked the trailer in daylight with other people present. Never found anything again. After a few years, it stopped. Maybe it got bored. Maybe it found someone else who made the mistake of looking. Maybe it realized I had learned my lesson. I do not know. All I know is that I am lucky. Lucky to still be driving. Lucky to still be sane. Lucky to be sitting here talking to you instead of being another missing person, another mystery that no one can solve. He finished his coffee and set the cup down with a heavy thunk. The rules exist for a reason. Ethan, Jimmy said, his eyes meeting mine again. Follow them. Do not get curious. Do not think you are special or that you can handle it or that you are smarter than the people who came before you. You cannot. None of us can. These rules are not suggestions. They are not guidelines. They are the terms of a contract we did not sign but are bound by anyway. Follow them, and you can drive these roads. Break them, and you become part of the darkness. Part of the stories other drivers tell. Part of the warning. I thanked Jimmy for the information and left the truck stop with my mind reeling. Part of me wanted to dismiss everything he had said as the ramblings of an old man who had been on the road too long, who had let isolation and stress break his grip on reality. But another part of me, the part that had seen the man in red, the part that had felt the wrongness of mile marker 187, the part that recognized truth when it heard it, knew that every word was real. Every word was true. Every word was important that I decided that night to follow the rules. All of them. No exceptions. No compromises. No testing to see what would happen if I bent them just a little. I wrote them down on an index card and taped it to my dashboard where I could see it every time I drove. I read them before every trip, reviewed them every time I stopped for gas or food or rest. They became part of my routine, as essential as checking my mirrors or monitoring my fuel gauge. The CB radio had been quiet for hours, just the occasional burst of static. That is normal for this stretch. Most drivers are asleep at this hour, pulled over at rest stops or truck stops, getting what rest they can before dawn breaks and they have to start driving again. I had the radio on more out of habit than any expectation of hearing anything useful. It was just background noise, a reminder that other people existed somewhere out there in the world. Then it started speaking. At first, I thought it was just interference, some weird atmospheric thing. Solar flares can do strange things to radio signals, especially out here where there is nothing to block or absorb the waves. The words were garbled, backwards, sounding like someone playing a recording in reverse. I reached for the volume knob to turn it down, but then I heard my name. Nachtje. It was my name. Ethan, but spoken backwards. Reversed. The syllables were wrong, the emphasis was wrong, but I knew what I was hearing. Something on the CB radio was saying my name backwards. Every hair on my body stood up. A cold sweat broke out across my skin. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard that my knuckles turned white. Nade, Potts. Potts 1. Udinoe. Stop. Stop now. We need you. The voice was wrong in ways that I struggle to describe even now. It had a quality to it that made my skin crawl, made my stomach turn, made every instinct in my body scream that this was not right. This was not natural. This was not human. It was too flat, too emotionless, and yet somehow also desperate. Hungry. Like something that had been waiting a very long time and was running out of patience. I remembered rule number 4. If your CB radio starts speaking in reverse, turn it off immediately and do not respond. I reached for the power button, but my hand froze halfway there. Because the voice spoke again, and this time it was not in reverse. Ethan, we know you can hear us. We have been waiting for you. We have been waiting for so long. So very long. Decades. Centuries. Time moves differently for us. We have been here since before the highway. Since before the white men came. Since before the red men came. We have always been here. And we will always be here. Waiting. My finger hovered over the button. Part of me wanted to respond, wanted to ask who they were, what they wanted, why they knew my name, but I knew that would be a mistake. The rule was clear: do not respond, do not engage, do not acknowledge. Turn around, Ethan. Come back to mile marker 187. We have something to show you, something you need to see, something that will explain everything. All the questions you have been carrying, all the fear you have been feeling, all the nights you have spent looking over your shoulder, wondering what is following you. We can give you answers. We can give you peace. All you have to do is come back. Just turn around and come back. I pressed the button. The CB clicked off, and the cab was plunged into silence. But even in the silence, I could still hear that voice in my head, echoing, pleading, demanding. It knew my name. It knew where I had been. It knew about mile marker 187, and it wanted me to go back. I never went back. I kept the CB off for the rest of the night, and even after sunrise, I left it off for another few hours, just to be safe. I did not want to risk hearing that voice again. I did not want to risk it saying something that would make me reconsider, that would make me curious enough to break the rules. Whatever had been speaking through that radio, it knew me, it had been watching me, and it was waiting for me to make a mistake. The months passed, and I continued to follow the rules religiously. I became known among other drivers as someone who was paranoid about certain things. I would not stop at certain mile markers. I would not pick up hitchhikers no matter how desperate they looked. I would not let vehicles follow me for too long without taking evasive action. Other drivers thought I was strange, overly cautious, maybe a little crazy. Let them think what they wanted. I was alive. I was sane. I was still driving. That was more than could be said for some others. I started hearing stories about drivers who had gone missing on Interstate 80. Not many, maybe one every few months, but enough that I noticed a pattern. They always disappeared at night. They were always alone, and they were always found miles from their trucks, if they were found at all, with no explanation for how they got there or what happened to them. The official reports always said they had wandered off, gotten disoriented, died of exposure, but I knew better. I knew they had broken the rules. I knew the darkness had claimed them. I heard tapping on my trailer more times than I can count. It happened on clear nights and stormy nights. It happened when I was hauling full loads and when my trailer was empty. It happened on Interstate 80 and on other highways, in Wyoming and in neighboring states. Rhythmic tapping, like someone knocking on the door with their knuckles, or like something scratching at the metal with claws, or like rain except there was no rain, and the tapping followed a pattern that rain never follows. Each time it happened, I kept my eyes forward. I did not look in my rearview mirror. I did not look in my side mirrors. I kept my gaze locked on the road ahead, and I drove to the nearest town or rest stop, somewhere with lights and people and safety. And each time, when I finally stopped and checked the trailer in the daylight with other people present, there was nothing there. No marks, no scratches, no sign that anything had been touching my trailer at all. But I knew it had been there. I knew something had been pressing against that metal, trying to get my attention, trying to make me look. And I was grateful, deeply grateful, that I had never given in to that temptation. But there was one night, one terrible night about 6 months ago, when I nearly broke rule number 1. And that night changed everything once again. I was hauling a load of electronics from Denver to Billings, a long haul that would take me straight through the heart of Wyoming. I had timed it carefully so I would pass through during daylight hours, avoiding the dangerous stretches at night. But a breakdown near Laramie had cost me 6 hours. A blown tire, then a problem with the brake system that took the mechanic longer to fix than expected. By the time I got back on the road, the sun was already setting, painting the western sky in shades of orange and red that should have been beautiful but instead filled me with dread. I knew I was going to be driving through the night. I knew I was going to pass mile marker 187 inches the darkness. And I knew I needed to be more careful than I had ever been before. Everything was going smoothly for the first few hours. I passed through Laramie, then Rawlins, then Rock Springs. The night was clear and cold, the stars bright overhead. My truck was running well, the engine purring smoothly, all the gauges reading normal. I started to relax a little, started to think that maybe tonight would be fine, that maybe the darkness would leave me alone. Then, just after midnight, my engine light came on. It started as a flicker, barely noticeable, just a brief flash of orange on my dashboard. Then it flickered again, and then it stayed solid, glowing steadily, demanding my attention. A few minutes later, I felt the truck losing power. The engine was struggling, the RPMs dropping even though I had not changed my speed. The temperature gauge started to climb. The engine was overheating. I checked the gauges, hoping it was a sensor malfunction, hoping it was not real. But the temperature kept climbing, into the warning zone, into the danger zone. I could smell something burning, that distinctive smell of overheated metal and boiling coolant. The engine started to make a knocking sound, a terrible rattling that told me I was doing serious damage to the motor. I needed to stop. I needed to pull over and let the engine cool down before I seized it up completely and caused thousands of dollars in damage that I could not afford. I looked at the road ahead, searching for a safe place to pull over, searching for a rest area or an exit or even just a wide shoulder where I could stop without blocking traffic. And then I saw the mile marker ahead. Mile marker 187. No, 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 no. This could not be happening. Of all the places my truck could break down, of all the stretches of highway in Wyoming, it was failing right here, right at the one place I absolutely could not stop, right at the one place the rules said I must never, ever stop after dark. I pressed down on the accelerator, ignoring the warning lights, ignoring the smell of burning oil, ignoring the terrible knocking sound that was getting louder with each passing second. I had to get past that marker. I had to make it past mile marker 187 before the engine seized up completely. The temperature gauge climbed higher. The needle was buried in the red zone now, past the highest mark on the gauge. I could see steam starting to leak from under the hood, wisps of white vapor that caught in my headlights. The knocking was so loud now that it drowned out the radio, drowned out the sound of my tires on the asphalt, drowned out everything except the desperate prayer I was whispering under my breath. Please, please just let me get past this marker. Please just give me another mile, another half mile, anything. Just do not let me stop here. I saw the marker ahead on the right side of the road. White and green, innocuous in the darkness, just another number in an endless series of numbers. But I knew what it was. I knew what it meant. I knew what waited there. My truck shuddered violently. The engine misfired. I was losing speed rapidly, dropping from 60 miles per hour to 50 to 40. The steering wheel was vibrating in my hands. The whole cab was shaking. The marker was getting closer. 200 yards. 100 yards. 50 yards. Come on. I muttered through clenched teeth. Come on. Come on. Come on. 30 miles per hour. 20 miles per hour. The marker was right there, right next to me. I was going to stop. I was going to break the rule. After years of being careful, after all the times I had followed the rules perfectly, I was going to stop at mile marker 187 inches the middle of the night. And whatever happened next, whatever came out of the darkness to find me, I would have no one to blame but myself. Then I saw them, figures standing on the shoulder, dozens of them, maybe hundreds. They lined the road in both directions, standing perfectly still, all facing the highway. Men, women, children. Some were wearing modern clothes, jeans and t-shirts and jackets. Some were wearing outfits from decades ago, suits and dresses from the 50s and 60s. Some were wearing things I did not recognize at all, clothes from even further back, from the pioneer days or before. And they were all watching me, not moving, not speaking, just standing there in the darkness beyond my headlights, perfectly still, perfectly silent, watching and waiting. Their faces were pale in the starlight, unnaturally pale, like they had not seen the sun in years, or like they were not made of flesh at all, but something else, something that only looked like flesh from a distance. My truck dropped to 10 miles per hour, 5 miles per hour. I was rolling to a stop, and as my speed decreased, the figures started to move. They stepped toward the road, not walking but gliding, their feet not quite touching the ground. Their movements were wrong, jerky, and unnatural, like old film footage played at the wrong speed or like puppets being pulled by invisible strings. They were coming for me. I slammed my hand down on the horn. The sound blasted through the night, loud and harsh and desperate. It was all I had left, all I could do. One last act of defiance before the darkness claimed me. The horn echoed across the empty plains, bouncing off the distant hills, filling the night with its urgent, terrified call. The figures stopped. They froze in place, mid-step, mid-glide, as if the sound had physically halted them. I kept my hand on the horn, keeping it pressed down, filling the night with noise, and my truck rolled forward. Slowly, painfully slowly. But it was moving. 5 miles per hour became 6, then 7. The engine was barely turning over now, just chugging along on fumes and willpower, and whatever God looks after foolish truckers who find themselves in impossible situations. The figures started coming again, but slower now, more cautious. They reached the edge of the asphalt, and I saw their faces clearly for the first time. Pale, hollow, wrong. Eyes that were too large and too dark, like pools of ink that reflected no light. Mouths that opened too wide, revealing darkness inside. Just darkness with no teeth or tongue or anything human. They reached out with hands that had too many fingers, fingers that were too long and too thin, and that bent at angles that human fingers should not bend. My truck cleared the marker. Just barely. Just by a few feet. But it cleared it. I was past mile marker 187. The engine gave one final shudder, one last desperate attempt to seize up and die. And then it roared back to life. The temperature gauge dropped like a stone, falling from the red zone back into the normal range in seconds. The knocking stopped. The shaking stopped. The engine light went off. It was like nothing had happened, like the truck had never been in trouble at all, like the last 10 minutes had been a nightmare that evaporated the moment I woke up. I looked in my side mirror, and the figures were gone. The road behind me was empty. Mile marker 187 was just another marker, fading into the distance, looking completely ordinary and innocent in the glow of my taillights. But I knew what I had seen. I knew what had been waiting for me. And I knew how close I had come to stopping, to breaking the rule, to becoming another story that drivers tell late at night. I did not stop driving until I hit the Montana border. I did not dare. Even though my truck was running fine now, even though the engine was purring like nothing had happened, I kept driving. I drove for another 2 hours straight, putting as much distance as possible between myself and mile marker 187. Only when I crossed into Montana, only when I was in a different state entirely, did I feel safe enough to pull into a rest area. I sat in my cab for a long time that night, just shaking, just trying to process what had happened. I had seen them. The things that wait at mile marker 187, the things that the rules are designed to protect us from. And they were worse than anything I had imagined. They were not ghosts. They were not spirits. They were something else entirely. Something that looked human from a distance but was fundamentally wrong when you saw them up close. Something that had been there for a very long time and would be there for a very long time more, waiting for the next person who broke the rules. After that night, I seriously considered quitting. I thought about finding a different job, something that would keep me off the roads at night, something that would keep me away from Interstate 80 and mile marker 187 and all the other places where the darkness is stronger than it should be. I looked at job listings for warehouse work, for local delivery routes that would have me home every night, for anything that would let me keep driving without having to face the things I had seen. But in the end, I stayed. Because trucking is what I know. It is what I am good at. It is in my blood, passed down from my father and his father before him. And more than that, I understand now that someone needs to know these rules. Someone needs to be out here, following them, proving that it can be done. Someone needs to survive these encounters and share their story so that other drivers know what to watch for and how to protect themselves. The rules are not just for survival. They are a contract, a set of boundaries between our world and whatever exists in the spaces we do not talk about, in the empty places between towns, in the darkness that falls over the highways at night. As long as we follow them, as long as we respect them, we can coexist with that darkness. We can drive these roads and make it home. We can do our jobs and support our families and live our lives. But the moment we forget, the moment we get complacent or curious or brave, that is when the darkness reaches out. That is when it takes. That is when we become part of it. Another missing person, another unsolved mystery, Another ghost story that other drivers will tell around truck stop counters late at night. I have been following the rules for 3 years now, and I am still here. I am still driving. I am still making deliveries and earning my living on these highways. I have seen things that would break most people, things that I will probably never fully understand, things that have changed me in ways I am still discovering. But I have also learned something important, something that keeps me going even on the darkest nights. The darkness is not evil. Not in the way we usually think of evil. It is not malicious or cruel or deliberately harmful. It is just different. It exists according to its own logic, its own laws, its own purpose. It was here long before we built these highways through it, and it will be here long after the highways crumble and the world forgets that trucks and cars and human civilization ever existed. And as long as we respect those laws, as long as we follow the rules that define the boundaries between their world and ours, it will leave us alone. Most of the time. There are still nights when I see the man in red standing on the shoulder, thumb out, that terrible smile on his face that stretches wider than any human mouth should stretch. There are still nights when I hear tapping on my trailer, rhythmic and persistent, following patterns that seem almost like communication, almost like someone trying to tell me something in a language I do not speak. There are still nights when headlights appear in my mirror and stay there for miles and miles, testing me, waiting for me to make a mistake, waiting for me to forget the rules and let them pass. But I do not make mistakes anymore. I follow the rules without question, without hesitation, without curiosity about what might happen if I broke them. Because I have seen what waits for those who break the rules. I have seen the figures at mile marker 187. I have heard the voice on the CB radio. I have felt the presence behind those headlights. And I know that following the rules is not just about survival. It is about maintaining the boundary between the world I understand and the world I do not. It is about respecting forces that are older and stranger and more powerful than I can comprehend. Rule number 1. Never stop at mile marker 187 between sunset and sunrise. Rule number 2. If you see headlights following you for more than 20 miles, do not let them pass. Rule number 3. Never pick up hitchhikers wearing red after 10 at night. Rule number 4. If your CB radio starts speaking in reverse, turn it off immediately and do not respond. Rule number 5. Do not look in your rearview mirror if you hear tapping on your trailer at night. These 5 rules have kept me alive. They have kept me sane. They have allowed me to continue doing the job I love in a world that is stranger and more dangerous than most people realize. And if you are reading this, if you are someone who drives at night, especially through Wyoming or anywhere else where the darkness feels too thick and too present and too alive, then I am begging you to remember these rules. Write them down. Keep them in your cab. Tape them to your dashboard. Put them in your phone. Memorize them. Make them part of your routine, as automatic as checking your mirrors or monitoring your speed. Because these rules are not suggestions. They are not guidelines. They are survival instructions written in the blood and disappearances of everyone who came before us and learned these lessons the hard way. Last month, I was at a truck stop outside Laramie, getting coffee and a sandwich before the last leg of my journey. It was late afternoon, the sun starting to sink toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and amber. I was standing in line at the counter when I heard a young voice behind me. "Excuse me, sir?" I turned around and saw a kid, maybe 22 or 23 years old, wearing a company uniform that still looked crisp and new. He had that eager, nervous energy that all rookie drivers have, that mixture of excitement and anxiety about the job they have just started. I recognized him immediately as someone who was fresh out of training, probably on one of his first solo runs. "Yeah?" I said. "I heard you talking to the cashier about heading up through Wyoming," the kid said. "This is my first time running that route at night. I have a delivery in Billings that I need to make by tomorrow morning, so I am going to be driving through the night. Do you have any advice? Anything I should watch out for?" I looked at this kid, at his eager face and his new uniform and his complete innocence about what he was going to encounter on those dark highways, and I felt a weight settle in my chest. I could tell him the rules. I could warn him about what waits in the darkness. I could try to prepare him for the things he might see, the things that will test him, the things that will make him question everything he thought he knew about the world. Or I could let him discover it on his own, the way I had, the way every driver eventually does. I decided to tell him. Because maybe, just maybe, If he knew about the rules before he encountered the darkness, he would be better prepared. He would be more careful. He would have a better chance of surviving his first night on Interstate 80 through Wyoming. So I told him about the rules. All 5 of them. I explained them clearly and seriously, looking him in the eye, making sure he understood that I was not joking or trying to scare him or playing some kind of prank on the new guy. These rules were real. The danger was real, and he needed to take them seriously if he wanted to make it to Billings in one piece. He laughed at first. He thought I was messing with him, telling him ghost stories to scare the rookie. I did not laugh. I kept my expression serious, kept my tone grave, and I told him about my own experiences. I told him about the man in red, about the headlights that followed me, about the voice on the CB radio, about the tapping on my trailer, about the figures at mile marker 187. He stopped laughing. He looked at me with wide eyes, trying to decide if I was serious or crazy or both. I could see the doubt in his face, the skepticism that comes from living your whole life in the daylight, from never having encountered anything that could not be explained by logic and reason. But I could also see something else, a flicker of recognition, a memory of some strange thing he had seen or heard or felt but dismissed as imagination or coincidence or fatigue. "Are you serious?" he finally asked. "Completely serious," I said. "Look, you do not have to believe me. You can drive up there tonight and think I am just some crazy old trucker who has been on the road too long. But please, please, just keep these rules in the back of your mind. If you see something strange, if you encounter something that does not make sense, remember what I told you. Follow the rules. They exist for a reason." The kid nodded slowly. He pulled out his phone and typed something into it. "Can you repeat them? I want to make sure I get them right." I repeated the 5 rules slowly and clearly while he typed them into his phone. When I finished, he thanked me, still looking unsure but also looking thoughtful, like he was taking my warning seriously even if he did not fully believe it. "Stay safe out there," I said. "Keep your eyes on the road, keep your hands on the wheel, and if you see something wearing red after 10 o'clock, just keep driving." "I will," he said. "Thank you." I watched him walk away, back to his truck, phone in hand, probably reading over the rules I had just given him. I hoped he would remember them. I hoped he would follow them. I hoped I would see him again at another truck stop somewhere down the road, alive and safe and ready to pass the rules on to the next rookie driver. But I knew that not everyone listens. I knew that not everyone believes, and I knew that somewhere out there, right now, someone is breaking one of the rules. They are stopping at mile marker 187 to change a tire or check a weird noise or just stretch their legs. They are letting those headlights pass because it seems like the polite thing to do. They are picking up that hitchhiker in red because they feel sorry for them and want to help. They are responding to that voice on the CB radio because they are curious or because they think someone needs help. They are looking in their rearview mirror when they hear that tapping because they need to know what is making that sound. And they are learning why the rules exist. They are learning that some knowledge comes with a price. They are learning that the darkness is patient and hungry and always waiting for someone to make a mistake. I wish I could protect everyone. I wish I could stand at the entrance to every highway and hand out cards with the rules printed on them. I wish I could force every driver to take them seriously, to understand that these are not stories or legends or superstitions, but real warnings about real dangers. But I cannot. All I can do is drive my routes, follow the rules, and share my story with anyone who will listen, and hope that it helps someone else survive their own encounter with the things that wait in the Wyoming night. Because the darkness is patient. It does not need to catch us all. It does not need to claim every driver who passes through its territory. It just needs to wait. Wait for someone to forget. Wait for someone to get careless. Wait for someone to think they are special or immune or smart enough to break the rules without consequence. And when that person comes along, the darkness will be ready. I will not be that person. I will not forget. I will not get careless. And I will never, ever break the rules. If you are out there driving tonight, if you are reading this in your cab while you wait for dawn to break, if you are planning a route that will take you through empty places in the darkness, then please follow the rules. Keep your eyes forward. Keep your hands on the wheel. Do not stop at places where the air feels wrong. Do not let strange headlights pass you. Do not pick up anyone wearing red after 10 at night. Do not respond to voices that speak in ways voices should not speak. And do not look when you hear sounds that you cannot explain. The road is long and the night is dark, but morning always comes. The sun always rises, the darkness always retreats, at least for a while. You just have to survive until it does. You just have to make it through the night. You just have to follow the rules. I am Ethan. I am 32 years old. I am a truck driver who hauls freight across the American West, through some of the loneliest and strangest stretches of highway in this country. I have been driving for almost a decade, and I have seen things that most people will never see and would not believe if I told them. And I never break these 5 rules after dark. Not ever. Not for anything. Because I want to keep driving. I want to keep living. I want to keep seeing my family and friends, keep earning my living, keep doing the job I love. And the only way to do that is to respect the darkness. To acknowledge that there are forces in this world that are older and stranger and more powerful than I can understand. To follow the rules that define the boundaries between their world and mine. Stay safe out there, fellow travelers. Keep the lights on. Keep the engine running. Keep moving forward. And if you see something standing on the side of the road wearing red, if you feel headlights following you for too long, if you hear your name spoken backwards through static, if you hear tapping on your trailer in the dead of night, if you approach mile marker 187 after the sun goes down, remember what I have told you. Follow the rules. Always follow the rules. Your life depends on it. And whatever you do, whatever happens, no matter how curious or brave or desperate you feel, do not stop at mile marker 187 between sunset and sunrise. Just keep driving. Always keep driving.